Next up is the set of problems where we have to figure out what the c value is. We're given a point, y is 3 when x is 0, so that's the point 0, 3. And we're going to start out the same with this separating the x's and y's. So I'm going to have 1 over y dy equals 2x dx. We integrate 1 over y, now we have ln y equals x squared plus c. And like I said in the very first video, I like to solve for c right now. So before I solve for y, I like to solve for c. So if I plug in the point 0, 3, so ln of 3 equals 0 squared plus c, I'm going to have c is ln 3. So now I have my equation ln y equals x squared plus ln 3. And my goal is to solve for y. So I would use e, and y equals e to the x squared plus ln 3. And this is where I would leave my answer. Now this year you guys don't have to worry about multiple choice, but on a multiple choice problem, this would not be the final answer. This we could rewrite. So this is sort of like an optional extension, especially for those of you who plan to take more math in the future. So if we had to rewrite this, we can separate e to the x squared plus ln 3. We can make that e to the x squared times e to the ln 3. And the reason why this works is because if we were to multiply, when we multiply two things with the same bases, we add their exponents. So we're sort of unsimplifying this expression. Because if it was x squared plus ln 3 in the exponent, we would get the same thing here. If we had to simplify and combine these together, we would add those exponents together. The reason why we might separate these is because e to the ln 3 simplifies. So if I were to simplify that, the e and the ln undo each other and we're just left with a 3. So e to the ln 3 is equal to 3, which means this whole thing simplifies to 3 times e to the x squared. And this is how it would look on a multiple choice question, but again, you guys don't have to worry about this year. That's just something for those of you who are going to keep taking math. For number 6, we're given y is 1/4 when x is 1. So that would be the point 1 1/4. So I'm going to have 1 over y squared, 1 over y squared dy equals negative 2x dx. Y to the negative 2 dy equals negative 2x dx. So remember, all fractions we want to rewrite as negative exponents except when the exponent is negative 1. And we find the antiderivative of both sides. Negative y to the negative 1 equals negative x squared plus c. I'm going to write this back as a fraction. And I'm going to plug in my point 1, 1/4. So I have negative 1 over 1/4 equals negative 1 squared is negative 1 plus c. So negative 1 over 1/4 dividing by 1/4 is the same as multiplying by 4. So I have negative 4 equals negative 1 plus c, and negative 3 equals c. So I have negative 1 over y equals negative x squared minus 3. And to get the y by itself, I'm going to have negative 1 over negative x squared minus 3 equals y. We could simplify it by clearing out a negative 1, but I am not going to bother. So on the next problem, we're given the point 3, 2. So I have dy dx equals 2x over 3y. So if I move the y's over, and I'll move the 3 with it, so I'm going to have 3y dy equals 2x dx. We integrate. The antiderivative of 3y is going to be 3/2 y squared. Antiderivative of 2x is x squared plus c. So if I plug in my point 3, 2 to find c, I would have 3 halves times 2 squared equals 3 squared plus c. 3 halves times 4 is 6. So I'm going to get a c value of -3. So now our equation looks like 3 halves y squared equals x squared minus 3. And my goal is to isolate the y. So if I take that 3 halves, if I multiply everything by 2 to clear the fraction, divide by 3, and then take the square root, I'll have my final answer. Okay, last problem on this set. So y dy dx equals 2e to the x. So y dy equals 2e to the x dx. Antiderivative of both sides. The antiderivative of y is 1/2 y squared. The antiderivative of 2e to the x is 2e to the x plus c. So let's plug in 0, 3. 1/2 times 3 squared equals 2e to the 0 plus c. E to the 0 is just 1, so I'm going to have 9 halves equals 2 plus c. And if I subtract 2 from both sides, 9 halves minus 2 is 5 halves. So 5 halves equals c. And now my equation is 1/2 y squared equals 2e to the x plus 5 halves. Trying to get the y by itself, so I might multiply everything by 2. Sorry about that. 4e to the x plus 5. And y equals plus or minus square root of 4e to the x plus 5.